Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Stephanie. I am a stage 4 cancer survivor. Today is a day for another video. I'm nervous, if you can't tell. This video I've been putting off making for about a month. If I'm honest, I already recorded one and am not going to share it because in order for you to fully understand my story moving forward, I have to be completely honest with how bad I was and how severe my diagnosis was at the time, so that you can fully understand where I started and the miracle that my life is for me to be sitting here today. And I know God put this in my path and in my story for a purpose. And I have to share the really crappy parts for you to fully understand the miracle that my life is and how miraculous God's healing power is. So here we go. I have some notes here so that I can share with you from my health records exactly what was going on. Because if I'm being just totally transparent, wrapping my head around how severe my diagnosis was and how advanced it was and all of the problems that the cancer itself caused is really difficult for me. I don't think I was able to do it at the time, but now looking back, it's a lot. And when you find out that you're sick and have cancer, part of it is you have to tell everybody in your life. You have to tell your friends, your family. I had to tell my patients, and I am very concerned about people's feelings. I don't want people to feel bad for me. I don't want to make people upset. I don't want to make people scared or fearful. But the reality of the situation was I could have died at any moment. And I had a really hard time telling people already, because I remember every time I told somebody, I apologized for being sick, because I just felt terrible that I was bringing this into their lives, and I knew the road ahead was gonna be ugly, and I didn't know if that's because I wasn't going to make it or from the treatment itself. Thankfully, I made it, but it was a lot closer than anybody really knows or realizes. I had a near-death experience a couple weeks before my diagnosis. I felt the life leaving my body. At the time, I didn't understand that that was what was happening. But when I share with you the impact that my cancer had on my body, I want you to understand that modern medicine is incredible and it has its time and place. Alternative therapies and treatments are great and they can help a lot too, but there is nothing like the power of God's healing and the impact that that can have on our lives. So all the glory be to God. Thank you to my doctors and nurses, but this is a true miracle story, and it's time for me to embrace that and share it with you. So, I knew this was gonna be a big one. I didn't expect to cry, and not already. So, let's get right into it. I was diagnosed with stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. A common thing, or something that can happen with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, is it can cause what's called superior vena cava syndrome. Essentially, that means that the superior vena cava, which is a large vein that brings blood from the head, neck, chest, and arms to your heart, mine wasn't working and it was closing down. So with that, I had dilation of vasculature in my chest. I had distension of the veins in my neck, swelling in the neck. Essentially, my vessels and my heart was not working. So part of the reason I had a PICC line put in my arm was because the amount of disease in my chest. So I shared how I went to the hospital a few days before beginning chemo treatment, and that's because my doctor was able to pull up the PET scan on his computer at home. I called in on a Sunday because I was not feeling right and was told it's go time. He pulled it up. He's like, we cannot wait any longer. You need to go to the emergency right now. This is emergent. Go to the emergency room. We have to start getting answers. We need a biopsy. We need another CT. We need an echo. We need to see where things are at. So I went to the hospital. When I got to the hospital, they had to reset and turn off the machines because my resting heart rate was over 150, whereas before I got sick, my resting heart rate was around 60 to 62, so significant. When I went to the hospital, I had already had done a CT scan and a PET scan. So my CT scan revealed a left upper lobe mass measuring 13 by 10 centimeters transversely and 17 centimeters longitudinally. I had an upper mediastinal shift to the right with displacement and effacement of my left pulmonary artery and occlusion of my right upper lobe pulmonary vein. There was effacement of my left bronchus as well as the upper lobe bronchi and effacement of the inferior superior vena cava and probable effacement and obstruction of the left subclavian vein. I had a moderate pericardial effusion and a small posterior left pleural effusion and left upper lobe atelectasis, which is essentially collapsing of the lung in that area. I had mediastinal and epicardial lymphadenopathy, meaning there was lymph node involvement around my heart. And I had a mediastinal shift to the right, which I will insert a little video here of that shifting to the right and a video of the tumor so that you can see what that looks like. I also had enlargement of my liver and active cancerous lymph nodes around my liver as well. So the PET CT scans showed, of course, it affecting pulmonary function, but also with the superior vena cava syndrome, that can become very emergent, which mine was. That can cause trouble breathing, that can cause shortness of breath, and the heart issues that I was experiencing. So when I had my echo done at the hospital, I had cardiomyopathy. I was in heart failure because of the impact of the tumor on my heart. So actually cardio came in the morning that I was getting discharged to begin chemo, and they wanted to do a procedure, potentially place stents. And the discussion that was had on his cell phone right in front of me with my oncologist was that my oncology team knew and understood the risks because of my heart. I'm just gonna read it right from the notes. We are going to start the chemotherapy now because I think she will probably not survive till next week without starting chemotherapy. Her disease is extensive. Her echocardiogram shows an ejection fraction around 35 to 45%. The quality was poor. There was tumor around, which is probably impacting the contraction of the heart. Hopefully this will improve, which it has. We're going to give her doxorubicin, which is the red devil if you're familiar with chemo drugs, because this is potentially the drug that could cure her, which it did. But the problem is a lot of chemotherapy drugs have a huge impact on your heart. So when your heart is already very fragile and in a weakened state, the chemo could kill you because of the impacts of the chemo on the heart. And we discussed the risks and the rewards, and essentially it was just a risk that we had to take. And so going into my first week of treatment, my heart was not in good shape. We had a large conversation about tumor lysis, which is essentially when they blast your tumor with the chemo and the immunotherapies, the cells go everywhere in your body. And so tumor lysis is basically the impact of the tumor on your body and the burden that can cause. And when you have a large tumor, the bigger the tumor is, the more concern there is about this happening. And so everyone on staff, all of the nurses, the infusion room staff was prepared that I very well may not make it through the first week of my treatment because they were expecting a reaction and interaction with the drugs. I did not have any reactions to the chemo itself. I had a random reaction to the Benadryl, which was to help prevent the reactions, but I made it through that first week. It was a really difficult week for me mentally because every single day I didn't know if that was gonna be my last day, but it was so important to me to make sure that my days and moments were spent just being happy and thankful and confident that God had this. And it's funny now because now I'm able to understand the full impact of the severity, where at the time it's just so much to take in. And I'm glad that it was, because I had so many conversations where I just remember saying, it's gonna be okay. That's the only option. God's got this, it's in his hands. And I just had such faith and trust in that's what was going to happen. That was the outcome. Looking back, is that maybe a little bit naive considering the state that my body was? Maybe, but I know and trust in the power of our Almighty God and the power that he has to heal broken bodies, to help the hurt, to heal the sick. And I'm so grateful that I'm here today and that I'm able to even make this video. I'm so thankful for the life-saving treatments that I received, and that the timeline so perfectly, divinely was arranged, because it worked out. The risks were worth it. It was always in God's plan to be how it was, but I felt like I had to share the truth behind my diagnosis and how significant it was, because some people have heard me say things like, I almost didn't make it, or I may not have made it another week. And I think anytime you hear stage 4, you automatically know how significant it is. But a big part of having cancer is not just the cancer itself, it's all of the other organ systems that it can affect. And so I was on kidney medication to help prevent tumor lysis and kidney failure from the chemo. That's why they monitor our numbers every week. There's a lot that goes into it to make sure your body can withstand it. And honestly, I don't really know, besides telling you that God carried me through this, I don't really know how I'm sitting here. I feel like I was given the gift of borrowed time, and that's why everything in my life is shifting and pivoting, because I'm trusting in God's plan, his purpose, and the calling that he placed on my life. And part of it is to share this, to share the good, the bad, and the ugly, to be completely vulnerable about what my story is. This video is not fun to make, but I know it's important, and I know that through me sharing my story, I know that it's going to help bring peace and understanding and comfort and education to others. When I started chemo, I did not have my full diagnosis. So at the time of starting chemo, they knew it was a high-grade lymphoma. They knew it was very aggressive, and we were starting the most aggressive chemo possible, but we did not have a full diagnosis yet because we could not wait. So I actually didn't get my full biopsy results back for weeks after I started treatment. And that's kind of a weird thing. Like, still it's a weird thing to grasp the concept of, but that just goes to show we didn't have time, and it truly was a life-saving measure where we just had to start. And lately that's ringing true for a lot of things in my life. Sometimes we can't wait for it to be perfect or to have all the answers. We just have to start. And so I'm glad that we got started. I'm glad with how everything worked out. That will be coming next. The start to my journey, the start of chemo, what that first week looked like, the fears and hesitation, the things that carried me through. I will walk you through my chemo journey. So side effects, symptoms, how I felt, things I experienced, the blessings, the hardships, I'm gonna give it all to you, coming soon. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for allowing me to be completely open and honest and real with you about my journey. And I know a lot of this in the beginning is heavy, and I just feel like it's so important to lay the groundwork for what the beginning was like, because the beginning was heavy and it was full of a lot of unknowns and a lot of bad news. And so I'm really sorry that I'm giving you the bad news, but I'm giving it to you now cancer free and a couple months removed from the end of my treatment. So I hope this helps. I hope it gives you some answers and clarity and understanding as to me and what I faced and what's to come. Thank you again for watching. I can't wait to see you in the next video.